Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. The King of God, Asgard signed 100 million years. Chapter 1. Like the colorful sky, light shines from time to time, and Asgard, which seems to be a retro-European style building, is very majestic under the light. Warships and flight equipment are flying around in the sky, shouts and iron strikes can be heard in the city, and there is a touch of classicism in the high technology. The light of Bifrost in the distance seems to go straight into the universe, and a majestic figure in golden armor is standing on Bifrost and watching the 9 realms. Anyone who reads it will sigh, Asgard deserves to be called Asgard. The plains of Idvar, located in the center of Asgard, is where the Aesirs gather to discuss important events. At the moment, conscription is going on here. Countless Asgard people gathered here, wanting to join the army and join the war with Odin, the Lord of Asgard. Although there are many people, they are very neat and orderly under the command of the most elite warrior Valkyries in Asgard. People lined up in long queues, and the whole of Asgard was like a huge amounts of machine running in an orderly manner. Soon, it was the turn of a somewhat thin black-haired boy. Name, Ron Kidman. Age, 18. It has been 18 years since I came to Asgard, perhaps because of time travel. Although he was born in Asgard, the constitution is not as powerful as the Asgard warriors. As we all know, the body density of Asgardians is several times that of Earthlings. So, Ron looks weak here. So if Ron wants to become stronger, he can only join the army, gain a lot of military exploits, and be blessed by the power of Odin bestowed by Odin. All the powers of Asgard warrior come from the power of Odin. As long as the Odinsons are around, Asgard will always be Protoss. The reason why he wants to become stronger is because Ron has huge amounts of crisis in his heart. Don't think that Asgard is safe. Not to mention Ragnarok, the Dark Elves invaded, and Hela, the goddess of death, reappeared. Which event involving Asgard wasn't bloodshed for thousands of miles and millions of corpses? Think about it carefully, Asgard is much more dangerous than Earth. Ron didn't want to die, so he tried his best to join the army. Now, the opportunity finally came. Odin, Lord of Asgard, expanded his army and seemed to be preparing for a big war. The recruiting officer looked up at Ron. Ron, you've been assigned to logistics. What? The smile on Ron's face faded. You have to know, this is for your own good, your constitution is not suitable for the battlefield. The other party didn't say much, and reported Ron's identity. Ron opened his mouth, then turned around in a daze. Could it be that, in this Marvel world where danger is everywhere, is it really necessary to leave life and death in the hands of others? The host has joined the Asgard army, and the sign-in system has been successfully bound. At this moment, Ron seemed to hear a voice from heaven. The system can sign in every day, and there are advanced monthly signs, yearly signs, 10-year signs, century-old magic signs, 1,000-year super magic signs, 10,000 years. Ron's mood fell from heaven to hell, and from hell to heaven. Therefore, he chose to sign in very decisively. Sign in successfully, sign in for 1 day in a row, and get a reward, stamina potion. Physical potion. After use, the physical strength is slightly increased, and the number of uses is unlimited. Ron used it immediately after reading the introduction. Feeling his body, it seems to be a little warmer. He clenched his fists. He doesn't need any Odin power now, just give him time, he can become stronger. Ron, where have you been assigned? A person came up behind him and patted Ron on the shoulder. The huge amounts of strength almost made him stagger. Logistics department. Ron, who regained his composure, said casually. The logistics department is good, they are all girls. Ron had nothing to say. You two, get out of here as soon as you finish signing up, and don't affect the people behind. At this moment, a spear stood in front of the two of them. While the two were startled, a Valkyrie wearing a battle armor and riding a Pegasus looked down at them. Yes, hi, Hildegard. Korfur, who had been chatting with Ron before, was frightened and said hastily. Hildegard, Odin's most trusted subordinate, also possesses amazing strength and is also one of the most powerful warriors in the Valkyrie Legion. It's just that he looks a little shivering, and his body is twice the size of Korfur. No wonder he was so scared that he was almost speechless. Instead Ron just nodded and followed Korfur all the way through the crowd. Fortunately, the opponent took the lead in squeezing, otherwise it would be really difficult for him to squeeze out of this long queue. Ron, remember to come for a drink tonight. Pushing through the crowd, Corver regained his confidence. Ron nodded with a smile, ready to go back to his residence to pack his things. Asgard has a large range, but fortunately, it has an extremely advanced flight controller, which can go anywhere you want. Ron's residence was very remote, and he was left behind by people who didn't know if they were his parents when he was born. Therefore, although he has lived for 18 years, he has no feelings. After packing up his things to take away, Ron went out. Asgard is beautiful at night. There are stars twinkling from time to time, and they seem to be very close. There are classical buildings everywhere, giving people a feeling of being in an ancient capital. When we came to the Golden Hall, where the banquet was held, yellow gold columns supported the huge hall, and rows of fine wines were randomly placed on the table. Asgardians have only two hobbies. One is that he likes to fight, and the other is that he likes fine wine. Even Valkyries can often be seen drinking and staying out all night. Therefore, Ron saw many women and men clinking glasses with each other shoulder to shoulder. The more unrestrained ones directly poured the wine jar into their mouths. Ron held a wine jar in his hand, and immediately an unfamiliar person put his shoulders, and they pulled them together to drink. Ron's alcohol capacity is very good, usually 3 or 5 people can't drink him. But this is Asgard. The constitution of the Asgardians is completely different from that of the humans on Earth, so Ron can barely beat one. But just like that, many people are familiar with him. When you see him, you will be very friendly and say hello. This is Asgard's unique style. As long as you can drink and fight hard, then we are good friends. With so many soldiers recruited this time, I don't know what God King Odin wants to do. Definitely is going to conquer the 9 realms, and then the 9 realms will belong to our Aesir Protoss, hiccup. Ron listened to the conversation of the people around him, and immediately took a sip of wine for himself. Asgard calls itself a god race, and Odin, as the king of the gods, is naturally called the God King by them. But at the moment is in the 9 realms. In fact, many people disdain this title. Conquer the 9 realms. Frost Titans, Flame Titans are not easy to mess with. Immediately, a woman said worriedly, "What are you afraid of? We have the invincible Valkyrie army, we have the death goddess Hela, and we have the invincible god King Odin." A drunken warrior yelled, which immediately attracted the support of many people. For a moment, the entire hall was filled with the sound of howling ghosts and howling wolves. Death is not the end, it's just the beginning. We can fight for Asgard even after we die. Hela, goddess of death, can conscript our souls. Hearing this, the warriors of Asgard became more and more manic. Can't wait to go to the battlefield immediately. The goddess of death is in charge of Asgard's undead, and the Valkyrie Legion represents the majesty of Asgard. Even when many men were young, they fantasized about joining the Valkyrie regiment. The existence of these people made the warriors think that Asgard would definitely win the final victory. The battle hasn't started yet, although everyone in the hall believes that Asgard will win the final victory. But when Ron came to the barracks with his package, he still noticed the tense atmosphere. The last great war in Asgard. It also goes back to Odin's father, King Bor, who led the Asgard soldiers to defeat the Dark Elves. That battle can be called the biggest battle in Asgard so far. The Dark Elves were almost wiped out, and TIE particles were taken away by God King Bor. Definitely, Asgard's loss is also not small. But by now, Asgard had recovered. It's just that the battles are often sparse, and the common soldiers have no experience in major battles. That's why some people seem nervous. Asgard is both advanced and quaint. The advancement lies in its equipment, which is already a virtual technology. But Asgard soldiers prefer simple fighting methods to high-tech weapons. They think that fighting is to punch to the flesh, so that it is fun. With advanced technology, Ron quickly reached the logistics department. Even now, he was a little dizzy. He had been drinking all night, and now he didn't fall directly to the ground, which was considered restraint. But even so, he smelled of alcohol. Fortunately, the barracks in Asgard already smelled of alcohol. Moreover, he was also the first to arrive among the recruits in the logistics department. Sign in. Ron found a place to sit and chose to sign in. Sign in successfully, sign in for 2 consecutive days, and get a reward, strength potion. Ron still used it directly. Little things add up, he doesn't dislike them at all. It didn't take long for new recruits to arrive one after another. Like what Corfer said, it's mostly women. Then came officers in armor and divided them into teams of 3. Asgard is very advanced, but even if it is advanced, it must have sufficient logistical preparations. The so-called 3 armies have not moved, food and grass go first. Definitely, for Asgard soldiers, it doesn't matter what food and grass, as long as there is good wine. Not only are they difficult to get drunk, they may even get drunk and violent. For the special Asgardians of the Constitution, a threesome is just right. Ron, Brynhild, Karl Nila. Following the officer's voice, the 3 stood together. Ron took a brief look at his 2 teammates. Brynhild is blonde and has a gritty look. Karl Nila has black hair, with the indifference of strangers. Then, the 3 of them began to move the goods. The Asgard women are also physically strong. Otherwise, there would be no prestigious Valkyrie army. As a result, Ron found himself unable to move Brynhild and Karl Nila. Fortunately, he has long been used to it. During the break, Brynhild said to Ron, "Ron, I seem to have heard of you." "Yeah?" asked Ron. Brynhild didn't relax an exercise even at the moment, and was waving the spear he got from somewhere in his hand. Asgard is fully preparing for the battle, naturally all craftsmen are working intensely. So Brynhild also has a chance to get the weapon. Brynhild pointed his long spear in front of Ron, and then said, "Ron who only knows how to drink." Quote. Ron just nodded. "You shouldn't give up on yourself." Brynhild looked at him with some disappointment. "Just like me, although I was assigned to logistics, I still wanted to join the Valkyrie army and worked hard for it." Brynhild continued to work on his skills. And Ron couldn't help but glance at her. Brynhild, Valkyrie. Brynhild, do you want to inherit the title of Valkyrie? Asked Ron. Who doesn't want to? Brynhild glanced at him. It seems right. Ron said how he felt that the name was a bit familiar. Brynhild, one of the Valkyries who inherited Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a title, not just a person. So, Brynhild in front of you will become one of the most powerful Valkyries in the future. What about that black girl Valkyrie? Ron didn't have much interest in her, though. Because Brynhild always likes to pull him to train together. Maybe it's because Karl Nila doesn't seem easy to get along with. Definitely, Ron always refused with righteous words. This made Brynhild feel that Ron was giving up on himself. Originally, the Constitution was not good, and I didn't work hard. In fact, Ron just didn't want to expose himself too much. There are only 2 things he has to do now. That is to hang on and sign in. So the logistics department was just right. Asgard's war preparations do not know how long it will take. And the news that Asgard is preparing for war, the entire 9 realms knows. Therefore, the 9 realms suddenly fell into panic. God King Odin seems to want to conquer the 9 realms in an upright manner. Let the entire 9 realms submit to the leadership of Asgard. Successful sign in for 3 consecutive days, and get a reward, agility potion. Sign in successfully, sign in for 7 consecutive days, and get a reward, Dolly pill. Bolly pill. After taking it, the strength will triple within a short period of time, without any aftereffect. Sign in successfully, sign in for 30 days in a row, achieve the first monthly sign achievement, and get a reward, Bat Armor. Bat Armor. Batman Bruce Wayne's favorite work, with various functions and small props. Before I knew it, a month had passed. Ron finally had something to look at a little bit. Bat Armor. It was almost the same as the batsuit he remembered, and it wasn't so stiff that he couldn't even twist his neck. However, this is of no use to Ron now. So he put this thing into the system space together with Dolly pill. The system space is not a huge amounts of space, but like the games Ron played in his previous life, there are grids. The same item will only occupy 1 grid. Therefore, even if the initial space is only 30 grids, it is still enough for Ron now. Ron, when do you think the war will start? I don't know, it may take a while. Ron, how long do you think this battle will take? It took more than 100 years for King Bor to defeat the Dark Elves. Have no idea. Although Ron kept replying indifferently, Brynhild was not angry either. Her personality is still pretty good. So Ron doesn't hate her. After getting along, Ron often takes care of her. Her goals haven't changed, either. Ron, do you think I can join the Valkyrie regiment before the battle? There is hope, Ron said firmly. For those who have dreams, he will not laugh at them. What's more, he knew Brunhild would succeed. Unfortunately, my strength is not enough. Brunhild knew Ron was comforting himself. Don't worry, I'll try, Ron. Brunhild's strength at the moment is indeed not strong enough for her to join Valkyrie, let alone inherit the title of Valkyrie. But the war was about to start, and there was little time for Brunhild to grow up. Therefore, she will be very anxious. This kind of dialogue can almost be said to be the daily life of the two. Because there are too many people in the barracks, but very few people know each other. In the crowd, those who know each other will naturally want to report to the group to keep warm. As for Karlnila, she is mysterious and always disappears. Still, Ron sensed her problem. She does not consider herself an Asgard, but a Norn. Norn is also in the territory of Asgard, which is equivalent to a province. But Karlnila apparently doesn't think so. She seems to want to be independent. Whoever it was, Ron wasn't going to meddle anyway. Time passed slowly like this. The preparation time for Asgard has exceeded a year. If it weren't for the fact that Asgardians generally live thousands of years. Ron really thought a year was a long time. He signed in with great anticipation. Because this is the first annual signing, he now knows that when there are achievements, the rewards for signing in will be better. The Batman Warframe before it was, and there are few rewards that can match it. Successfully sign in for 1 year in a row, complete the first annual sign achievement, and get the reward Magic Affinity Extreme. Magical Affinity Extreme. She has an extreme sensitivity to magic, she is a true magic genius, and she can learn any magic at once. Ron was pleasantly surprised that he finally had an ability. Although he has improved a lot in various aspects during this year, he has only improved his constitution. But here comes the problem. He has magical induction, but he has no place to learn magic. Asgard people still have a high ability to magic. However, the god King Odin forbade the spread of magic. So there are many Asgard warriors, but basically no mage. The mage that appeared was also very powerful, such as Frigga, Loki, Charm Witch and so on. Ordinary people don't even have access to magic. So, all Ron can think of now is Frigga. The Queen Frigg, a member of the Warner Protoss, originally has a high magic ability. Definitely, she is more like a necromancer than a mage. But anyway, Ron couldn't even see Frigga's face. The little logistics soldier wants to see the Queen. Do you want the Empress to teach magic? I dare not even dream of doing this. Therefore, Ron could only accumulate magic power silently and put hope on the system. He didn't believe that he couldn't get what he wanted by signing in. The ability of magic affinity is really strong. Ron just meditated for a while, and he felt the magic power in the air beating around him like an elf. As he absorbed it, it rushed into his body in a rush. Is this what genius feels like? It didn't take long for Ron to be happy, and he felt that there was an extra person beside him. Moreover, the opponent has a magical breath. Mage. Ron opened his eyes and looked towards the other party. It turned out to be Karlnila. She is mage. At the moment, Ron and Karl's eyes met. Interesting. This is the first time Karlnila has spoken out. You actually have such a high magical ability. The same as you, Ron said to Karlnila. The two looked at each other warily. Unfortunately, you have no knowledge of spells and magic, and you are destined to waste your abilities. Karlnila then said regretfully. That won't stop you from worrying. Ron was unimpressed. The cruel Odin will not grant you magical knowledge. How about making a deal? Karlnila came closer and said. I will provide you with knowledge of spells and magic, and you will help me become Queen of Norn. Norn Queen. Ron gave her a surprised look. Finally remembered the name. Karlnila, who later did indeed call herself Queen of the Norn, split the Norn from Asgard. And Odin has nothing to do with her. Because after a long period of practice, Karlnila's magical power has become the second only to Odin in Asgard. Ron began to make calculations in his mind. He has no sense of belonging to Asgard. After all, he had already formed the three views in his previous life, as the three views of a Earthling. He is not like Captain Marvel, who has the strength to be a ball gangster directly. To him, Asgard was less important than half the Earth. So, make a deal, Ron said. Definitely, he was also wary of Karl Nila, and he didn't dare to believe what the other party said. In the following time, Ron was practicing magic while signing in. He finally knew why Karl Nila kept disappearing. Because Karl Nila found an opportunity to sneak into Asgard, and then steal magical knowledge and those spells. Really bold, stealing under the noses of Odin and Frigg, and no, Hela, the goddess of death. Hela's magic attainments are not low either. Perhaps among Odin's few children, only Thor, the idiot, has no sense of magic. However, Karl Nila has never been discovered, and his strength is getting stronger day by day. Ron's strength has naturally improved by leaps and bounds. Quickly mastered most of Asgard's spells and magic lore. It's just that the mana in his body is still accumulating. Ron discovered the difference between himself and Karl Nila. Asgard's spell system is not suitable for him. Just like the Kamar-Taj magic system of the Earth. Kamar-Taj's mage is about borrowing strength from other, great gods. Although Asgard cultivates by himself, he is not keen on accumulating mana. How should I put it, it is completely different from the magic system Ron thought of. But he is still practicing, and it is always good to become stronger. Successful sign in for 2 consecutive years, and get a reward, a compass that doesn't know how to guide. A compass that doesn't guide. It doesn't guide, but it points to what you think. Another good thing. Ron put it away after using it a bit. He doesn't want to go out on a treasure hunt or anything right now. He's not strong enough, maybe not as good as Valkyrie. Therefore, continue to live on, this is the truth. 96 days into the second year of Asgard preparations. God King Odin summoned all Asgard's soldiers. There are tens of thousands of people, and there are no boundaries. Standing in the crowd, Ron raised his head and couldn't even see the edge of the army. All that could be seen was crowds in armor, weapons gleaming in the sun. The atmosphere was very oppressive, no one dared to make a sound, even Brynhild's face was tense. I don't know how long this atmosphere lasted until a figure descended from the sky. God King, Odin Bolson. He held the eternal spear and wore the destroyer armor, and the coercion he exuded made all the people in God's domain breathless. The equipment on Odin was made by the dwarf clan for him. It seems that the dwarf family has been conquered by Asgard first. All Asgard warriors, like the most zealous believers, raised their weapons and began to shout Odin's true name. People of the Aesir Protoss, warriors of Asgard, today is the day when Asgard attacks the 9 realms. Let's tear their chests out, put weapons in their heads, and take their place. The 9 realms will be unified by Asgard. The fanatical warriors shouted, eager to kill the enemy immediately. It has to be said that Odin's incitement ability is very strong. Even Brynhild blushed. The people of Asgard are a warlike bunch. Ron thought to himself, looking at Odin with a hideous face. Odin from at the moment is not one-eyed yet, and looks a little younger, not that old. It looks majestic and incomparable, it is the period of scenery. Who told him in the future that Odin is a gentle god king, a king who loves the people like a son, he will be the first to quit. Isn't Odin a tyrant? Internally complaining, Ron didn't dare to show it. Mainly the current Odin and the Odin in his memory, without any imagination. Sure enough, people change. Now, put on the equipment that dwarf friends prepared for us. When Odin finished speaking, Hela, the goddess of death, appeared, and then many weapons and armors that had been built long ago appeared out of thin air. It turns out that the dwarf clan has long secretly supported Asgard. Good way. I swear in the name of Hela Odinson that this battle will be won. Pioneer, let's go. As Hela yelled, the soldiers ahead began to rush towards Bifrost. The other soldiers all walked towards the flight controllers that had been prepared earlier. Hela, the goddess of death, is wearing a battle armor, with the cloak fluttering on her back, and her eyes are looking straight into the distance. This big princess of Asgard is extremely majestic at the moment, and her face is full of confidence. Apparently, she was the herald of Asgard, the one leading the charge. Whenever Asgard fights, it must be Hela who takes the lead. Far away, Heimdall, in his golden armor, turned away, holding his longsword aloft. Clang! as he slammed on Bifrost's controller. Bifrost opened with a bang. Buzz. Boom. Like a laser weapon, the light of Bifrost illuminates the entire 9 realms. As a strategic teleportation weapon that Asgard spent a lot of money on, Bifrost can teleport the army to any place in the 9 realms in the shortest time. If activated for a long time, Bifrost can directly destroy a world. But the god King Odin clearly wanted conquest, not destruction. Therefore, Bifrost only sent Hela and her vanguard, the death army that belongs exclusively to the goddess of death. Boom. Bifrost shuts down slowly. Heimdall, patron saint of Asgard, stands like a statue on Bifrost. His eyes can see anywhere in the 9 realms, and his ears can hear any sound. He's like Asgard's doorman, reassuring everyone. At the same time, he is also the big brother of Sif, the goddess of war. Ron didn't have a chance to take a second look, so he followed the public to the flight device of the logistics army. This was his first time on a large military flight vehicle. It is very different from other flight controllers. There are weapons and buttons everywhere. After finding a seat and sitting down, an officer came to ask after a while, "Where's Carl Nila?" Ron and Brynhild exchanged glances, then shook their heads. Carl Nila is gone. Although Ron guessed where she was, he definitely wouldn't say it. This Norn coward, deserter. The officer immediately cursed and left. Obviously, this happens a lot. And now that we are leaving, it is impossible to find Carl Nila alone. Now Ron knew why Carl Nila wanted to be the queen of the Norn and let the Norn be independent. Discrimination in Asgard is also ubiquitous. Ron had suffered a lot before. Although everyone plays with him, it's just because he can drink. "I don't know how to fight, and I always feel a little bit rejected." Ron simply looked out the window. One flight after another flew into the sky and flew out into the universe. The scene was quite spectacular, as if the sky was filled with Asgard's flight instruments. The light can only find those gaps and fall on the ground, making Asgard look a bit dark for a while. No one knows how many troops Asgard has invested in this 9 realms war. It is not even known how long this war will last. I don't know how many creatures can survive this great war. Odin, the tyrant. It didn't matter to Ron whether Odin was a tyrant or a benevolent one. He is not Madonna, nor does he have a Madonna. Anyway, this 9 realms war did not involve the races on Earth. However, this is the first time Ron has come in the universe and seen the real 9 realms. The 9 realms are divided into 3 layers, supported by the World Tree. Asgard is naturally on the top floor, next to Vanaheim. The other circles are also branched in turn. Countless stars surround the 9 realms, bringing a ray of light to the endless dark universe. Not long after, Ron saw a blue planet. That's Midgard, or Midgard as it's called. Seeing Ron staring at the planet, Brynhild whispered in his ear. She has a good background and a wealth of learning knowledge. After all, Asgard isn't all reckless. No, that's Earth. Ron murmured. Earth, well, no matter what it's called, it's the center of the 9 realms. I heard that when the Dark Elves wanted to bring the 9 realms to darkness, they also did it on Earth. Brynhild quickly embraced the name Earth. I don't know when I can go and see it. Ron sighed. Getting used to the life of Asgard, the current, primitive, life on Earth, he is really not necessarily used to it. The present Earth is estimated to be more than 1,000 years BC. It's hard, knowing that the Earth has been the territory of Asgard since ancient times. Brynhild laughed. Ron could tell she was a little nervous. Although he was smiling, his teeth chattered a little. Are you nervous? So he asked. Aren't you nervous? This is my first time on the battlefield. Brynhild took a deep breath. I don't want you to fight. But I want to go. Her face was determined. Afterwards, the two fell into silence. The flight speed was very fast, and it didn't take long to reach the battlefield. It's Jotunheim, Brynhild said. A world of ice and snow came into view. From now on, it is the enemy's home field. It's strange that I didn't go to Alfheim, which is just below the gods' domain. Maybe the elves of light are easier to deal with. The elves of light have a better relationship with us, so they won't be so ungrateful. If it was a dark elf, they might have already started fighting. Quote. Listening to the words, Ron and Brynhild lined up. There are not only dark elves in the 9 realms, but also light elves. It's just that the elves of light love nature, They love light and are kind, and they don't want to start a war lightly, so they have nothing to do with the world, and Asgard doesn't want to provoke it easily. The Warner Protoss was Asgard's enemy back then, but now they have married and reconciled. Even the princesses of the Warner Protoss married Odin as the Queen of God. Coupled with the dwarf clan that has already secretly belonged to, in fact, there are only those few enemies in the Nine Realms War. Definitely, this is just the beginning. As Odin's ambitions grow, there's no telling what will become of them. Call. When I got off the flight controller, there was a gust of cold wind blowing. Even the constitution of the Asgard people felt extremely cold. Jotunheim has always been in a world of ice and snow, and the temperature is always extremely low. There are icebergs and snow and rain everywhere. This is where the Titans live, and the Titans are the enemies of the gods. In addition to Frost Titan, there are Mountain Titan and so on. The Titan was originally born after the gods. After the original Titan Ymir was killed by the three Odin brothers, Ymir's blood drowned most of the Titans, and the remaining Titans fled to Jotunheim to establish the Titan Kingdom. Therefore, Jotunheim and Asgard are world enemies. This is why Asgard chose the First Crusade. Be careful, the logistics department is retreating. Under the arrangement of the officer, the camp was quickly formed. The vanguard is already fighting Jotunheim's garrison. Frost Titans with the same color as ice and snow are the most in the guard army. The Titans are strong, and most of them are the embodiment of natural forces, so their strength will continue to grow stronger in the ice and snow. Titans are far taller than Asgard Warrior, and their strength is terrifying, so Asgard Warrior falls from time to time. The two sides collided together like a torrent, and then became anxious. The soldiers in front seemed to disappear suddenly and were killed directly. The Titan has it, and so does the Asgard Warrior. Both sides of the war paid a heavy price in a short period of time. Go away. Ron saw that Hela, the goddess of death, let out a cry, and then smashed the weapon in her hand to the ground. Boom! This blow sent out a powerful impact, directly shaking all the surrounding enemies away. Ron took a closer look, and the weapon used by Hela at the moment turned out to be a hammer. Mjolnir. Later the famous Mjolnir. At the moment, it is Hela's weapon. This is a treasure offered by the dwarf clan and was given to Hela by Odin. However, Hela is obviously not easy to use. For she dropped Mjolnir quickly, and drew her sword out of nowhere. Hela's exclusive weapon, Night Sky Sword. Hela, goddess of death, is a mighty swordsman whose skill with the sword is unrivaled in the Nine Realms. Putting on the natal weapon, Hela immediately turned into a killing god. She is like an arrow, directly inserted into the heart of the Titan army, constantly splitting the enemy's camp. Soon, the Valkyrie Legion joined the fray. Coupled with the continuous arrival of Asgard warriors, the outcome of this battle is already clear. The Frost Titans can only retreat and give up this area. Just as Ron thought, the Titans didn't hold back, and quickly chose to retreat. Due to the unfamiliarity of the terrain, coupled with the fact that the terrain here is very complicated. Hela did not choose to pursue, but to rectify first. Find a suitable terrain and build a front-end base. Hela's orders came down. Now, the thoughts of the god King Odin are clear. That is to establish a base belonging to Asgard in the Nine Realms. When Asgard has its bases in the Nine Realms, the Master of the Nine Realms is worthy of the name. Definitely, this is just the first step. The next thing is to conquer. But establishing a base, even with Asgard's technology, is difficult to complete in a short period of time. Ron and the others suddenly became construction workers. Still doing the work of the logistics department. Only the location changed from Asgard to Jotunheim. Successful sign-in, continuous sign-in for 915 days, and reward, strength potion. Successfully signed in for 3 consecutive years, and received a reward, blue pills. Blue pill. After using it, the power is infinite, and everyone understands it. Successfully signed in for 4 consecutive years, and received a reward, blue pills. Successfully sign in for 5 consecutive years, and get a reward, Wang's fighting skills. King's fighting skills. Arthur King Artoria's fighting experience and skills. After using it, he will become a fighting master. In his 3rd year at Jotunheim, Ron finally came out with something good. I just don't know, is this Arthur King Artoria a sword dumb or a gun dumb? Because in this reward, there are combat skills for various weapons. All of a sudden, Ron became another character fighting the Great Sage. His current strength has undergone earth-shaking changes from the beginning. The physical fitness is getting stronger and stronger, and there is a potion every day. Coupled with the practice of magic, he has almost mastered all the spells of Asgard, and only the accumulation of mana is left. Now, with the combat experience of King Arthur again. As for the blue pill or something. Or press the bottom box. Apart from his own changes, Asgard's outpost at Jotunheim is finally complete. The reason why it takes so long is mainly because the Titans are always disturbing. And because I am not familiar with the terrain, I don't know how many times I have rebuilt it. With the completion of the outpost, many Asgard soldiers came through Bifrost immediately. Even if Odin invested an unknown amount of troops, the war would not end so easily. Ron was well informed now. Every other world, the Asgard warrior collides with the Titans. Because they scan the world like a scan. Titans will be found no matter how deep they hide. Moreover, under the leadership of the Frost Titan, they use the terrain to sneak attack on the Asgard warrior, causing many casualties. Those dying soldiers will be led by Hela into the kingdom of the undead, higher Hades. In fact, Hela can revive these soldiers and make their constitution better, but it rarely does. Maybe it's because she's the goddess of death. Brynhild also took part in several fights. The Titans tried to cut off Asgard's logistics more than once. Therefore, Brynhild also had the opportunity to test his own strength. From being nervous and afraid at the beginning, to being indifferent, and even killing enemies with a sword, I have to say that her ability to adapt is really strong. She was born to fight. There is an ice bridge ahead, and there are still icebergs in the distance. Brynhild glanced through the binoculars, then spoke to Ron. Another ice bridge. This place is a real torture for warriors. At first, Brynhild felt that the scenery was beautiful and fresh, something that Asgard didn't have. But now, there is only restlessness. The endless ice field, without any other color. The point is that it is still very cold, even the constitution of the Aesir Protoss can hardly resist this low temperature. Facing that kind of ice bridge, they can only let people test it first and check the surroundings. They have suffered more than once, and the Titans like to play tricks on it. But this time it seems normal. Both the item and the convoy passed safely. Let's go. Ron looked at the vigilant Brynhild and said. Faster. He has already sensed that a Frost Titan is approaching. But he didn't show any abnormality. In fact, this kind of thing has happened many times. But Ron didn't touch it once. Enemy attack. Soon, when they reached the middle of the ice bridge, the Frost Titan was discovered. Ron had to lament that these Frost Titans were as stupid as pigs. What does it mean to sneak attack and be discovered before it arrives? After the Frost Titan was discovered, he had to do it in advance. The result of this is, boom, the ice bridge was destroyed directly. And embarrassingly, Ron and Brynhild were only halfway there. Bing Chao turned into a powder, and the two didn't even have the time to escape. Although Ron could fly, Asgard's spells made him immune to the situation. But considering that there were Asgard warriors all around him, he resisted the idea of doing it. Dropped with Brynhild. Brynhild's reaction was quick, and he directly pulled out the long sword at his waist and plunged it into the ice, trying to slow down. At the same time, she also captured Ron. But soon, she noticed that Ron was levitating. Brynhild was dumbfounded. She didn't know that Ron could still fly. Ron looked up, and the Asgard soldiers couldn't see them for a moment. And below, there are dozens of Frost Titans. So, quick fix. He directly embraced Brynhild, and said, give me the sword. Brynhild gave him the sword in a daze. Ron was like a jumping elf. The long sword in his hand easily found the weak point of the Frost Titan, and then easily pierced it. He is like the best assassin, always a weak point attack. Subsequently, Ron shook the long sword in his hand lightly, annotated the magic into the long sword, and suddenly a sword flashed across. Crack. I don't know how thick the ice layer was directly cut with huge amounts of holes. And the Frost Titan that was still standing turned into two halves directly. The upper body slid directly from the waist. This time, he directly killed an unknown number of Frost Titans. Crack. And the weapons made by the blacksmiths of God's domain couldn't withstand the power of these magics, and they shattered directly. Ron threw the hilt of his sword to the ground casually, and looked at Brunhild, who was a little dumbfounded. He stretched out his hand and shook it in front of Brunhild's eyes. It has ended. Oh, Brunhild replied stupidly. Then the eyes started to focus on Ron's face. Ron, I won't tell. Brunhild looked at Ron solemnly. Ron smiled. It doesn't matter whether you say it or not, he just doesn't want things to become troublesome. Then, the two of them climbed up from the side and returned to the main force. Frost Titan retreated directly if the sneak attack was unsuccessful. While Ron and Brunhild looked normal, no one noticed their return. Although nothing seems to have changed. But Ron still noticed the change in Brunhild's attitude towards him. In the past, Brunhild had the idea of hating iron but not steel. He always felt that he was self-defeating, his physical ability was not good, and he hadn't worked hard to become stronger. Now it has become a little more attentive. She never expected that Ron, who was known as only drinking, would be so strong. Just at that moment, Brunhild felt that he was much stronger than Valkyrie. Therefore, Brunhild had the idea of apprenticeship. And this idea has been lingering in her mind. So I kept serving tea and water to Ron. Bren, what do you want? Ron asked helplessly. Ron, can you teach me? Brunhild spoke her mind. Now Ron knew what she wanted to do. It turned out that this was the idea. However, Ron decisively refused. Although he and Brunhild have been staying together for the past few years, the relationship has not been so good. The two can only be regarded as friends, and Brunhild was not too enthusiastic about him before. Brunhild was a little disappointed, but he didn't give up. For the next time, he followed Ron all the time. Without mentioning what he said before, he just looked at him with hopeful eyes. Let everyone else in the logistics department think that Ron has done something messy. Don't think that Asgardians don't like gossip. There is no entertainment here, and I dare not even drink too much. Therefore, this kind of gossip spread quickly. Ron had no choice but to ask, Bren, why are you doing this? Because I want to become stronger. I want to join the Valkyrie army, I want to become a Valkyrie. Brunhild spoke firmly. Sensing that she wouldn't give up easily, Ron had a headache. Well, I'll teach you, and if you can't bear it, just tell me. Ron decided to let Brunhild give up on his own. In the following time, Ron and Brunhild started sparring. And he hit hard. He just used his skills to beat Brunhild with bruises and bruises. Ron wanted to make Brunhild give up in this way. But what he didn't expect was that Brunhild was like Xiaoqiang. Never give up. Successfully signed in for 6 consecutive years, and received a reward, Golden Compass. Golden Compass. It can vaguely know what will happen in the future, definitely. First of all you have to be able to interpret it. For almost a year, Brunhild did not give up. Although a year is nothing to the long life of an Asgard. But it was enough to impress Ron. As for the Golden Compass, this thing is indeed a good thing. It seems a little better than a compass that doesn't know how to guide. Definitely, first of all, he needs to be able to interpret. Because there are only icons on the Golden Compass, such as men, women, children, and lightning. The prediction given by the Golden Compass can only be turned on the icon, and how to interpret it needs to be understood by oneself. It's harder than Ron's reading comprehension in his previous life. Clang. Ron blocked Brunhild's attack casually, and then slapped her on the back heavily with the blade of the sword with his backhand. Brunhild was naturally beaten out. But she quickly got up from the ice, steaming from her body. The icy air made the hot air coming out of her almost condense. You're making rapid progress, Ron sighed. Under his sling, Brunhild's fighting skills improved rapidly. Moreover, the physical fitness has also increased slowly. Wanting to join the Valkyrie army seems to her no longer a dream, but a reality. It's just a lack of opportunity right now. After all, the Valkyrie army is not so easy to advance. Valkyrie is not so easy to be. To inherit the title of Valkyrie, the Valkyrie Legion and Odin must be recognized. This means that she needs absolute force. So, not enough. Brunhild gritted his teeth and rushed towards Ron again. Ron easily blocked it, and then fed her moves. I don't know which version of Artoria's skills are better than at the moment's Brunhild. It can be said that Ron has approved of Brunhild. And Brunhild's name for him has also changed. Teacher, You go to rest, I will move the next things. That's right, teacher. Ron naturally refused, but Brynhild couldn't help being stubborn. And at Brynhild's request, he also called the other party, Boob. As for war, still going on. God King Odin seems to be playing for real. The Asgard army slowly advances, bit by bit occupying the Titan's territory. Bit by bit, it oppresses the living space of the Titan. This style of playing like boiling a frog in warm water made the Titans unaware of the danger at first. Except for the strong resistance at the beginning, the strength of the resistance becomes smaller as you go to the end. But Ron knew that there would be an Armageddon. When the living space of the Titans is not enough, it will naturally make them more angry and dangerous. At that time, it was a battle that would determine the world. Definitely, that's none of Ron's business. They're just back office. The real decisive battle must be between God King Odin and Frost Titan King Loth. Frost Titan King Loth has just taken over the throne, and he will certainly not give up resistance easily. In order to be able to rule the 9 realms, God King Odin will not release water. All Asgard people are starting to miss Asgard. I can't wait to end this war immediately. However, it took longer than expected. Sign in successfully, sign in for 7 consecutive years, and get the reward, Infinity Blade. Infinity Blade. In the ancient legendary of V.A. Roland, the Infinity Blade is the most powerful weapon. There was a crit. Ron didn't expect that Common's annual sign would be able to obtain such a treasure. This means that he finally has a weapon that he can barely hold. While it's unlikely to be as good as dwarf-crafted treasures, it's certainly better than normal weapons. Ron took out the Infinity Blade. It was just the right length, running right down from the tip of Ron's ear to his hand. Definitely, the most important thing is its material, which is unique to the Roland continent, very strong and powerful. Buzz. Ron tried to pass the magic to the Infinity Blade. The Infinity Blade easily withstood the power of magic, unlike other weapons that collapsed immediately after being used up. Teacher, what kind of weapon is this? After Brynhild saw it, he asked immediately. Infinity Blade, come and try. Ron took Brynhild to No Man's Land. Start your daily practice. With each slap, Ron sent a little bit of magical energy into Brynhild. This will help her improve her constitution. Magic is a very idealistic thing. Its effect can only be imagined by you, and there is nothing impossible to do. And Asgard's spell system takes it to the extreme. Definitely, magic is also the thing that takes the most time. But for Ron, time is exactly what he does most. Signed in successfully, signed in for 8 consecutive years. Successfully signed in for 9 consecutive years. Successfully signed in for 10 consecutive years, completed the first 10-year signing achievement, and received a reward, the False Eye. Eye of Illusion. You can see through all illusions in the world and see the most real world. In the 10th year of the signing, the first 10-year signing, Ron has produced something good again. But at this time, Asgard occupied less than half of Jotunheim's territory. In the 9 realms, the size of the earth is the largest, followed by Asgard. But although the other places are not big, it will take a lot of time to completely occupy them. Definitely, the most important thing is that the Jotun Titans fight locally. They are familiar with the terrain and know where to hide. And the Asgardians need to find them slowly. That's a lot of time wasted. Successfully signed in for 20 consecutive years. Successfully signed in for 30 consecutive years, and received a reward, Superman Cloak. Superman Cape. Clark Kent's exclusive cape. His mother likes this cape very much. Successfully signed in for 40 consecutive years, and received a reward, Ring of Water Nanya. Nanya, the Ring of Water. The magic ring of the elves, Galadriel, the Queen of the Elves. With it, you can control the water. Successfully signed in for 50 consecutive years, and received a reward, Bumblebee. Bumblebee. Shape-shifting King Kong, it has become your exclusive car. 50 years passed in the blink of an eye. Not even a wrinkle appeared on Ron's face. But his strength has undergone earth-shaking changes. With the accumulation of various potions, his constitution has surpassed most of the Asgard people. His magic attainments, after 50 years of practice, have become extremely powerful. The mana in the body is like a river, flooding every communication with the body with the limbs. It is completely different from Kamar Taj's magic of borrowing power. It's just that there is no opponent, and he doesn't fully understand his own strength. Don't know if you can beat Hela from at the moment. Gather. As the officers shouted, all the Asgard soldiers in Jotunheim gathered. After decades of fighting, it's finally time for the final battle. Just as Ron thought, the Titans found that they had no way out, and naturally had the idea of fighting to the death. The sight of millions of Asgard soldiers coming together is a spectacle. Especially the thick snow and ice under the feet seemed to have cracked marks. The temperature has become a lot warmer at this moment. However, none of the Asgard warriors made a sound. The expressions on their faces already indicated that they couldn't wait for a decisive battle. They want to kill the Frost Titan and get the hell out of here. After such a long time, Ron saw Hela, the goddess of death again. She rode the spirit wolf, and Mjolnir was like a toy hammer in her hands. It's just that the current Hela is no longer glamorous in his eyes. Beneath her cloak, though, she is full of life. But the left side of her body is completely decayed and dead, only the right side is full of vitality. It looked very weird and terrifying. Death and vitality formed a balance on her body. This appearance really made it impossible for Ron to connect her with the beautiful princess. Death goddess Hela glanced in this direction. He seemed to meet Ron's eyes. Ron quickly closed the false eye. Hela, the goddess of death, returned to normal in his eyes. Unexpectedly, Hela's true face is even more terrifying than he imagined. The false eye really lives up to its reputation, seeing the real world. This reminded Ron of the legendary that Asgard circulated. The legendary goddess of death, Hela, was born half dead and half alive. Without her cloak, she will not be able to leave the realm of the decedent. The cloak is the item she uses to maintain her life force. As the earthquake-like ice layer swayed, countless titans appeared on the other side of the icy world. Frost Titan, Mountain Titan, Storm Titan. Jotun Titans are the embodiment of natural forces, so their ability is to manipulate these natural forces. Frost Titan controls ice, Storm Titan controls wind. Therefore, they are actually not good at fighting. But Nehi is huge and powerful. Even if he is not good at fighting skills, it is difficult for Asgard warrior to deal with. Soon, a Frost Titan with a huge mallet appeared. In his other hand he holds the casket of ancient winters. Frost Titan King, Loth. Boom. Meanwhile, Bifrost fell from the sky. The sheer force left a huge amounts of imprint on the ice. When the power of Bifrost dissipated, Odin riding an 8-legged steed appeared in midair. He was still the same as he had seen at the beginning, holding the Spear of Eternity and wearing the Destroyer armor. Odin's eyes were fixed on King Loth. Odin, Loth. The two didn't even talk too much, they fought together directly. At this point, any words are pale and powerless. Only with strong strength can we fight for our own interests. King against king, general against general. As the battle between Odin and King Loth begins, Hela's mount, the evil spirit wolf, rushed up with a howl. Mjolnir was thrown out by her at will, and then took out the main weapon. After a long fight, Hela found that the night sky sword is still easy to use. Mjolnir is good, but not for her. Only Thor regards it as a treasure. Charge, kill, for Asgard. Countless shouts filled my ears. Ron, Brynhild and the others were behind, watching the two steel-like torrents collide together. The armor on the Asgard warrior gleamed, and so did the Titan's body. In just a split second, their eyeballs were filled, and there was no empty space in their eyes. Fights are happening everywhere, even in the skies. Valkyries on Pegasus battle the Titans in Hefung. Every dragon-toothed sword is stained with the blood of the enemy. I want to fight too, Brynhild said firmly to Ron. She has been practicing with Ron for more than 40 years. Although more than 40 years is just a short journey in the life of Asgard people, but there is already a lot of affection. Brynhild's strength really needs to be tested. Go, boo-boo, Ron said casually. Brynhild put on his armor and gave Ron a big hug. Take it. Ron threw the infinity blade at her. Brynhild didn't refuse. He glanced at Ron again, and rushed to the front line immediately. Ron, why didn't you stop her? Others hurriedly asked. Although they were also full of fighting spirit, they did not dare to go to the front to fight. You can only guard here to avoid sneak attacks. She belongs there, not the rear. Ron's eyes were on Brunhild. She was fast, and as Ron hammered her body with magic, her constitution had already changed a lot. Common's Valkyrie, constitution can't compare to her. Therefore, Brunhild quickly reached the front line. Then, drink, she jumped up and stepped on an Asgard warrior shield. What the hell? Warrior felt the shield in his hand sink, and subconsciously increased his strength to push it upwards. Then, Brunhild directly flew into the air with the help of this power. Ah! Brunhild roared, holding up the infinity blade in his hand. Under the refraction of the light from the ice layer, the infinity blade shone brightly. Therefore, even if Brunhild was only an extremely small point on the battlefield, she still attracted the attention of many people. Clang! The infinity blade was directly pierced by her into the head of a storm titan. Then she stepped on the titan's body all the way to the ice. She stood up quickly. Even though at the moment had entered the siege of the titans, she didn't panic at all. Although the infinity blade is not comparable to those treasures, it is similar to the dragon-tooth sword made by dwarf. In terms of sharpness, the infinity blade is even better. After all, it is Roland's most powerful weapon. So with every attack by Brunhild, a titan would fall and beheaded by her. However, countless titans rushed towards her, as if wanting to pile her up and die. Ah! A wolf howl sounded in her ear. The goddess of death with Green's cloak fluttering in the wind appeared in front of Brunhild. She looked down at Brunhild and said something. Follow me. Afterwards, the two pierced the heart of the Titan army like sharp knives. As for the army of death, they have long been thrown to nowhere. Every moment, living beings die. Even Ron, who was used to Sikong on the battlefield, frowned slightly. Then, look at the two rays of light in the sky. The power of Odin surrounds the god King Odin, making him look extremely majestic, and the whole god body becomes infinitely larger. King Lof naturally also started to grow bigger. This is his home field. The sky seemed to have turned into two colors, one side was icy and snowy, and the other side was extremely gorgeous. However, although Jotunheim is the home ground of the Frost Titan, the strength of King Lof is no match for Odin. Not to mention Odin, he can't even beat Sudert. As a Frost Titan, what he fears most is extreme fire weather. Now Odin seized his weakness and constantly manipulated the magic of the fire attribute, causing huge amounts of damage to King Lof. This battle continued for several days. The Asgard army and the Titan army below have ceased fighting several times. After resting, they continued to fight, and the two people in the sky were still tireless. Until King Lof took the lead and couldn't stand it anymore. He could only hold up the box held in the other hand. Casket of Ancient Winters. Casket of Ancient Winters was barely opened by him, and the temperature of the whole world seemed to have cooled down a lot. The ice ground, which had been cracked by the army, immediately froze again. Frozen world. Countless cold-colored ice chi rushed to Odin, as if to freeze him. And Odin is happy and unafraid. He just raised his right hand slightly, and threw the Spear of Eternity. Eternal Spear, also known as Gingnir. Its ability is simple yet powerful, and has an extremely powerful attribute. That is, you will definitely hit the target once you throw it, it can penetrate anything it hits, and then actively return to the owner's hand. The Eternal Spear instantly turned into a flash of lightning, piercing the sky of the entire 9 realms, allowing anyone and anywhere to see this, lightning. Later, the saying of making a wish on a shooting star came from this. The air of ice failed to stop the Spear of Eternity, and was directly cut through, dissipating like air. And the Eternal Spear also directly smashed in front of King Lof, knocking the Casket of Ancient Winters in his hand to the side. King Lof's huge body crashed to the ground, and the Spear of Eternity spun around the battlefield like a parading soldier, and then returned to Odin's hands. Odin took it and pressed it to King Lof's forehead. Surrender, or die. Oh shit. Roar. Victorious. Asgard, Asgard. As the gloomy King Lof chose to surrender, all the Titans fell to their knees in submission, and the warriors of Asgard cheered. However, a race can be wiped out, but not defeated. Ron looked at the hatred in Titan's eyes, and thought of all the rebellions and battles in the 9 realms in the future. But in any case, the decades-long Jotunheim War is over. Asgard got off to a good start. God King Odin welcomed the glory and announced that Jotunheim had become a subsidiary of Asgard. Goddess of Death Hela frowned, seemingly dissatisfied. There was another round of cheers. Although the Asgard warriors were exhausted, they all vented their emotions. Then, the god King Odin came down, and the eight-legged horse came to Brunhild. Brunhild trembled slightly. May I have your name? Brunhild. Okay, Brunhild, are you willing to join the Valkyrie army and fight for Asgard from now on? God King Odin looked at Brunhild majestically and domineeringly, and said these words to her. Brunhild did not agree immediately, but subconsciously looked at the cheering crowd. But there were too many people, and she couldn't find the figure she wanted in her heart at all. Until Valkyrie behind her pushed her. I would. Brunhild was full of excitement, but also said with a little bit of reluctance. All the Asgard warriors looked at her with admiration and envy. To be valued by God King Odin will definitely make a fortune in the future. Definitely, Brunhild's strength is obvious to all. She is the only one who can follow Hela, the goddess of death, into the heart of the enemy army. Why didn't you kill Loth? Hela questioned her father. In her opinion, this kind of soft defeat is not called conquest at all. What we want is surrender, not destruction. Hela, your killing intent is too serious. Odin looked at Hela and said in a low voice. Didn't you still not revive those soldiers who died in battle? You obviously have such an ability. Hela responded with disdain. She sees no difference between herself and Odin, both are butchers. However, she enjoyed it. You should calm down. Odin snorted coldly with an ugly expression. Then you shouldn't have left that box with the Ice Titan either, you should have taken it with you. Hela said again, without any relief. She thought Odin was too kind. It didn't matter if Loth wasn't killed, and the casket of ancient winters didn't take it away. Isn't this waiting for Loth to rebel again? Odin smiled instead, though. He took out a huge amounts of glove from behind the throne and put it in his hand. There are 6 holes on the glove, which can store gem-like things. I've found better treasures. That kind of small box can't help us conquer the universe. Holding the Infinity Gauntlet, Odin said meaningfully to Hela. Hela finally smiled. Jotunheim, just start. Watching Hela's back disappear, Odin muttered to himself, Ragnarok. It won't happen when I collect all the rough stones. Asgard shall rule this universe. Returning to Asgard on the flight controller, Ron finally felt at peace. The wind and snow in Jotunheim always made him a little uncomfortable. Seeing the 9 realms again, it is different from the peace at the beginning. The 9 realms are slowly changing, and this war will definitely affect the other 8 realms, except Earth. There is only one boss on Earth now. In a place where humans are impassable and surrounded by the world's bottomless abyss composed of oceans and water. Inhabited was Jemengard, the earthly serpent, who was large enough to encircle the mortal world. Even Odin doesn't want to mess with it. Coupled with some other reasons, Asgard will not go to conquer the earth. God's domain is being refurbished. Seeing countless Titan slaves building brand new Asgard and Asgard, Ron felt a little emotional. Although the new Asgard is only a prototype and needs more slaves, it can be seen that it is much more brilliant than before. It seems to be a veritable, golden hall. Because this is not only a place for banquets, but also the residence of the god King Odin. Definitely, a hall called Van Golf is still being expanded. It seems to be a banquet place for the goddesses. It's been a while since Asgard has changed so much. The only constant is Bifrost. Heimdall doesn't need to rest, and won't leave that place. All the way through, Ron did not break away from the peloton. The 9 Realms War is not over yet, they just returned to Asgard for a short rest. You have to keep fighting. When Brunhild returned to the logistics department again, she was treated like a hero. All the Asgardians in the back office surrounded her, envious of her new attire. She has her own Pegasus, dragon-tooth sword, armor. It took a lot of effort for Brunhild to get all the onlookers to leave. She came up to Ron. Master, I'm a Valkyrie. Her face was full of excitement, her wish for many years had finally come true. I know. Ron smiled too. The Brunhild in front of him gave him a feeling of growing from a small sapling to a big tree in the sky. Moreover, he poured the water himself. Brunhild's at the moment strength should also rank among the top among Valkyrie. Becoming the strongest Valkyrie and inheriting the title of Valkyrie is not far away from her. Teacher, return it to you. Brunhild took out the infinity blade and offered it to Ron with both hands. She wouldn't be where she is today without Ron. She knows this very well, so she has a lot of respect for Ron. Brunhild is different from other carefree Asgards, perhaps because of her experience. No, you need it more, Ron said to her, and Brunhild happily accepted it. Although she has the dragon-tooth sword, she still prefers the infinity blade. Chapter 11. In the following time, Brunhild will still come to Ron to practice frequently. To this day, she still can't beat Ron, because Ron's strength grew much faster than hers. Teacher, how strong are you? Brunhild asked curiously. I don't even know how strong I am. Ron laughed. He didn't want to expose his strength, because he was basically using Asgard's spells now. Once Odin finds out, it will definitely end badly. How cruel Odin is, those Asgard soldiers and titans who died in battle know best. Odin could have used Odin's power to bring the dead warrior back to life, but he didn't. Let Hela, the goddess of death, pull their souls into the realm of death. Brunhild didn't mention much about this aspect, and since Ron didn't want to talk about it, she wouldn't be too fussy. Odin did not rush to wage war on the other realms, but gave the warriors time to rest. Definitely, the small unit battle never stops. It's just that there is no army on the border yet. And according to Brunhild, Asgard is still consolidating Jotunheim's gains. Odin seems genuinely interested in turning Jotunheim into a colony of God's domain. Although the Titans didn't resist immediately, they also aroused many conflicts. Therefore, a new round of invasion war will not start immediately. This is not a problem for the people of Asgard. They have a long life, and war naturally cannot fill their life. During the day, he supervised the slaves to build a new country, and at night, he drank fine wine. Asgard has a style of singing and dancing. Ron leaned against the golden pillar, holding the wine jar in his hand, staring into the distance. Asgard's scenery is actually very good. Beyond the range of Asgard, there are deep mountains everywhere, and all kinds of strange creatures live there. Suddenly, a concealed teleportation magic appeared in front of him. Sensing the magically familiar scent, Ron walked over. There was no feeling of dizziness, and he came directly to the deep forest. Karlnila. Ron looked at Karlnila in front of him. The other party has changed his appearance, no longer wearing Asgard standard armor, but wearing a black dress. I'm getting ready to leave here, Karlnila said. Leave? Yes, I'm going back to Norn. See you next time. You should call me Norn Queen. I hope you haven't forgotten your promise. Karlnila said proudly. Obviously she has been preparing for something. Ron didn't know what to say, he just nodded. He was able to learn the magic of Asgard, and it was indeed the benefit of Karlnila. Karlnila waved his hand and disappeared immediately. It can be seen that after these hours of practice, her magic attainments are not low. She just lacks experience now. When she has enough experience, she will become the strongest in Asgard after Odin. Ron cast teleportation magic on himself and returned to Asgard range. Wow! Ron held the wine jar and took a sip of wine, as if he heard a low sob. He hurried towards the source of the sound. There shouldn't be any bullying in Asgard, right? This is Asgard, after all, not some lighthouse nation. Okay, don't cry, Morley Sen is not really dead, he just returned to the embrace of death, and his soul is still in the kingdom of the dead. The kingdom of the dead. Can we go? I just want my child, why go to war? To him he's alive, but to us he's dead. It's all you bloody militants. Quote. We definitely won't get there, but death is just the beginning, isn't it? Listen to what the eldest princess said. Only the dead can reach it, and they have to walk the rugged road for 9 days and 9 nights in the cold and dark place of the extreme north. Is this the beginning or torture? I'll get you a drink. Woo! Ron stopped in his tracks, and walked farther and farther in silence, until the sound of crying could no longer be heard. Looking at the splendor palace that had already taken shape, as if it was flaunting that this is a prosperous age, he felt a little ironic. Apparently, not all Asgards like war. It is only a part of people who are so fierce and brave. The blood shed in the war was that of the Titans as well as that of the Asgards. ... Woo! The horn of war sounded again. Ron, who was meditating, opened his eyes and chose to sign in by the way. He is used to it, just like the habit of holding a mobile phone every day when he wakes up in his previous life. Successful sign in. continuous sign in for 60 years, reward, invisibility cloak. The cloak of invisibility. Wearing it, no one can find out where you are, what you do, what you think. Ron tried it on, and then saw the surprised eyes of his fellow campers. It doesn't make people truly invisible. However, it can prevent others from peeping. Like Heimdall. Even Heimdall's eyes and ears were invisible once he put on the cloak. Not much use to Ron, though. He was sure that his magical attainments were beyond the reach of Heimdall. Otherwise, Heimdall could not have been indifferent to his meeting with Karlnila 10 years ago. To the people of Asgard who measure time in years, 10 years is just a short time. So it was just a simple rest, and it took a few years. But the large army has not yet set out, but many warriors have already left Asgard and went to fight in various parts of the 9 realms. This time, Odin did not concentrate his forces. He thought that was too slow. Even with his long lifespan, he couldn't bear the decades it took to conquer a world. So, just start the all-out attack. And he was also plotting his own plan. Ron watched the army marching in the distance, and they seemed to follow suit. "Where are you going this time?" Ron asked the officer. The officer was a woman named Louise, whom Ron knew well. Therefore, Louise also tolerated Ron's behavior and did not assign him a team. Muspelheim, Louise said quickly, and then left in a hurry. Muspelheim, the kingdom of fire in Legendary. The site of the flame titan Surta. As for the legendary of Ragnarok, the flame titan Surta will attack Asgard through Bifrost, causing the gods to fall. So, if you want to ask who Odin is most afraid of, it must be Surta. The reason why the power of Odin was formed back then was because Surta killed the 2 original gods, and their power was passed on to Odin's son, thus forming the power of Odin, making Odin the strongest existence in God's domain. The peak Surta can be tied with Odin. Odin couldn't help but be afraid of this. Therefore, Asgard was extremely resolute in attacking Muspelheim. The most powerful warriors were sent to the Kingdom of Fire. However, just when Ron was about to board the flight controller, Brynhild descends on Pegasus. The two haven't seen each other for some time. Since the war against the 9 realms has continued, the Valkyrie legions have had no time to rest. And Brynhild has also gained a lot of fame in the past few years. She is outstanding in strength, and dares to work hard. She often rushes to the forefront in battle, and she has made countless contributions. Almost everyone knows that she wants to inherit the title of Valkyrie. Most importantly, she also gained Odin's trust. The Valkyrie army was originally Odin's most trusted subordinate. Now that Brynhild is so outstanding, he will naturally receive the attention of the God King. "Ron, I need your help with a task." In front of everyone, Brynhild did not call the teacher. Ron glanced at Louise, who immediately smiled and let them go. In Asgard, hierarchy is also very strict. Brynhild's status has become higher, and Ron's treatment is naturally different. "Teacher, this is a task given to me by God King Odin. If I can ask someone to help, I thought of you." Brendan whispered, letting Ron mount her Pegasus. Pegasus are all white, so when the Valkyrie army gathers, it looks very gorgeous. "What mission?" asked Ron. "Looking for infinite rough stones." Quote. Ron didn't expect that Odin was collecting infinite gems. And Brynhild told him directly, and he didn't know whether to say that she trusted herself or was too big. "Don't worry, teacher, I am not the only one who is looking for it, all the people trusted by the God King are also looking for it." Hearing this, Ron was relieved. Whether he can find it or not is none of his business. "I thought I could experience Bifrost, but I didn't expect to leave the 9 realms this time, and I didn't need Bifrost at all." Riding a small flight device, the two jumped through several wormholes, and soon left the scope of the 9 realms. Ron at the moment pondered, and then so many infinite gems gathered on Earth. "I'm afraid it's not just because the Earth is the center of the universe. Odin's current actions may also have the effect of pushing hands. I just don't know, did Odin succeed or fail? There is no difference between the starry sky outside the 9 realms and the starry sky inside the 9 realms. On the contrary, there are not so many stars around, and the universe is even darker and quieter." Both Ron and Brynhild's constitution were very good, so they endured several wormhole transitions without any change in their expressions. "Which rough stone are we going to find?" Ron asked directly. Although Brynhild was a little surprised, she thought that Ron was powerful and must know a lot of secrets, so she didn't pay much attention to it. What the God King wants us to find is the soul gem. Quote. Ron knew where, but only by a name. So, the following time became Ron and Brynhild's cosmic drifting diary. They began to search all over the universe. Every Death Star, every mysterious person. Fortunately, they are powerful, and when they meet their cosmic robbers, they are all unlucky. It didn't even take Ron a shot. Brynhild stabbed them through with the Infinity Blade. After so many years of use, the Infinity Blade still hasn't changed a bit. Instead, it's getting sharper. It's not that Ron hasn't tried other methods. The compass, the golden compass, which does not know how to guide, has been taken out by him. Then when I think of soul gem, the pointers of these two things keep spinning, which is useless. Sign in successfully, sign in for 70 years in a row, and get rewards. Successful sign in, continuous sign in for 80 years, reward, system space upgrade volume. System space boost volume. Increase the system space by 10 grids after use. Time passed slowly. If there was no system in the universe, he would have forgotten how long it had passed. But there is still no news about the whereabouts of Soul Gem. During this period, Asgard didn't even reply once. Odin seems to have made up his mind to find all the infinite gems. So Ron and Brynhild can only drift in the universe. By this time, Ron had grown weary of the universe. The Kree Empire, the Skrull Empire, and the Shia Empire have also been there. These three empires are extremely ancient, and they are called the three great empires of the universe. But nothing appeals to Ron. So most of the time, Ron was meditating and practicing. With Brynhild, he did not relax, and constantly improved his own strength. Definitely, Brynhild has complained more than once that she wants to fight, not waste time. Time continued to pass. On this day, Ron was full of energy. Because he is about to sign up for 100 years and achieve new achievements. Brynhild is still out looking for news. He told Brynhild about Vomir Star and asked her to find the location. It's just that no one has heard of this planet, and naturally there is no star map. And himself, if the master wants to do something, what does the apprentice need? Successful sign in for 100 years in a row, achieve the achievement of 100-year sign in, and get a reward, Merlin's magic book. Ron's hands trembled. Then there was a somewhat old book in his hand. Even so, he could feel the huge magical power on it. Merlin's Book of Magic. The lifelong painstaking efforts of the legendary mage Merlin of the famous multi-universe. It records all the magic he has learned, created and obtained. At the same time, it is also a magic item with an indestructible effect. No weapon can destroy it. If you want to use it, you must first obtain Merlin's approval. Ron's hand didn't return to calm for a long time. The name Merlin is really famous in the multi-universe. No matter which world it is in, as long as it has this name, it must be the legendary in legendary. Even in the Marvel world, there is still Merlin's legendary. Merlin and the Sword in the Stone, but there is a Marvel version. Only, Ron can't open it right now. He felt the magical breath above, and began to pour mana into the Book of Magic. If you want to use it, you must first get Merlin's approval. How to recognize it? Merlin definitely wouldn't let a weakling inherit his spellbook. So, Ron felt that the book was draining his mana like crazy. Fortunately, after nearly 100 years of cultivation, Ron's mana is already terrifying. Originally is the ability, plus enough time. Few people in the whole of Asgard are his opponents. Ron's mana began to paint according to the lines on the magic book. This is to test his control over mana. Just having huge mana is not enough. If you want to cast a spell, you need fine manipulation. Consume the least mana and use the most powerful power. But it's easy enough for Ron. So, it didn't take long. Snapped. There was a soft sound from the Book of Magic, as if the lock in the invisible had been opened. A voice entered the depths of Ron's soul. Young mage, don't ruin my Merlin's reputation. Ron smiled wryly, and after 100 years of penance, he was actually called a young mage by Merlin. How scary is Merlin? Light spells, clean spells, auto-organized spells. The previous ones were all small spells, and the image of an old nerd suddenly appeared in Ron's mind. Sure enough, it is a different spell system from Asgard. Asgard has no such spells. However, the more you turn to the back, the stronger the recorded spell. Forbidden spells, divine arts. Definitely, these are not the most important is Merlin's own experience. This is the most precious thing. No amount of magic spells can buy a mage's lifelong experience. Ron sank into it. He didn't put down the magic book until Brynhild came back from the outside. Teacher, here it is. Brynhild said, I got it from a guy named Egg. How did you get it? Ron was curious when he heard the name. He doesn't seem to be interested in the Infinity Stone, so he wants to make a deal with me. How to trade? He asked me to bear his baby. Quote. As expected of you, Egg. I definitely didn't say yes, I took him to Collector to get girls of many races. Brynhild's voice became smaller and smaller, but soon calmed down. Well done, Ron complimented. The relationship between Collector and Asgard is good. After all, this kind of old guy who has lived for an unknown age is very good at dealing with people. Otherwise, Odin would not want to put Reality Gem in Collector later. Brynhild put up the star map, which is a bit old. But you can still see where the route is. Ron pulled out a compass that couldn't guide. It was still spinning around, but the speed slowed down quickly, and then pointed in one direction. It is true, Ron said to Brynhild. Both of them breathed a sigh of relief. In this case, even if there is still power to interfere with the compass, it will not fail. So, following the guidance of the compass, headed towards Vomir Star. Vomir Star, this is a very mysterious planet. Few people even find it here. If it weren't for the star map and compass, both of Ron would be lost. From the outside, it is not a complete sphere. There are pulses erupting from the other side of the planet, which appears to have been swallowed by a black hole. There is also a planet in the distance that has been permanently, total solar eclipse. Boom, the flight device landed safely without any threat. Looking up at the sky, it was dark and colorless. The compass pointed firmly in one direction. Let's go. Ron held out a cloak and offered it to Brynhild. Brynhild put it on without asking any further questions. After making sure she put on the invisibility cloak and the two would not be tracked, Ron walked forward. Brynhild nervously followed Ron. Following the guidance of the compass, the two of them came to an intersection not long after. A floating figure appeared in the distance. His whole body was covered by a black robe, and his true face could not be seen clearly. Red Skull. Ron had the name in mind, but rejected it right away. Just kidding, it's too early in the timeline. Red Skull's grandfather's grandfather didn't show up. Who are you? Brynhild asked, holding the Infinity Blade. It's really strange that there are still people in this kind of place. I am the Asgardian of Soul Gem. I know your purpose. The Asgardian did not say his name. Looking at the guarded Brynhild, he turned around and said, come with me if you want Soul Gem. Ron followed directly, and Brendan quickly followed behind him. At the beginning of the universe, the 6 singularities became infinite gems. It is said that if you collect all 6 infinite gems, you will have unrivaled power. Soul Gem has been wandering here since its birth. Countless people are looking for it, but no one can take it away. Said the Asgardian, floating ahead. Why did you take us to take it? Brynhild interrupted him. Because, as long as someone takes it, I can get out of here. Or, someone else will replace me. The Asgardian smiled grimly. Soon, the 3 of them came to a cliff. The Soul Gem is down there, and it's easy to get, just sacrifice your true love. The gem will appear automatically. Asgardian said. He just floated aside. Brynhild was silent. Ron smiled and said, it's not us who should be troubled by this matter, but God King Odin. Brynhild looked at Ron, and the two turned and left. The Asgardians were dumbfounded. Aren't you here to get the Soul Gem? No, I don't like it yet. Ron said disdainfully. The two quickly got on the flight device, and then went back in the direction of the 9 realms. Ron is looking forward to it now. What will Odin choose? Back in Asgard, Asgard was preparing for a decisive battle with the Flame Titans. Brynhild went straight to Odin, while Ron looked at the palace in front of him. The new, Golden Hall, is several times larger than the previous one. After decades of work and countless treasures, it was finally built. Behind Asgard are countless floating clouds, which look like fairy spirits. In the newly built port, countless warships and flight vehicles are docked, replenishing equipment and food, and making final preparations. Listening to the words in his ear, Ron already knew a lot of news. During this period of time, places such as Vanaheim and Yafheim have surrendered one after another. Their resistance was not strong, and Odin quickly chose to surrender after taking a shot. Only Muspelheim resisted fiercely, and the flame titan Serta has not surrendered. As for the remaining Dark Elves, they don't even have the qualifications to be conscripted. It has been ruled by Asgard since the Great War thousands of years ago. The Nine Realms War seems to be coming to an end soon. Ron could see that many warriors had expectations on their faces. This battle has been going on for some time, and they have lost countless relatives and friends. God King Odin sat high on his divine throne, looking down at Brunhild with piercing eyes. Brunhild spilled all the news about Soul Gem. The way to get the Soul Gem, according to that person, requires sacrificing true love. After Brunhild finished speaking, there was only silence in the entire hall. As if a century had passed, Brunhild felt that the coercion on Odin's body was constantly getting stronger. Beads of sweat appeared on her delicate forehead. "You're doing a great job." Finally, Odin spoke. "I'll go and see for myself, and don't tell anyone until then. You want to inherit Valkyrie. Go ahead and do your best and get on with it." "Yes, Your Majesty." Brunhild stepped back cautiously. It wasn't until she left the hall that she dared to let out a loud breath. Odin seemed to be devouring her just now, making her afraid to breathe. "Fear is normal," a voice appeared in her ear. Brunhild turned her head and saw Hela, the goddess of death, standing beside her. And she didn't realize it. Father's coercion is not something everyone can bear. Hela said something, then turned and left. Brunhild couldn't figure it out. What does Hela, the goddess of death, want to do? It didn't take long for Asgard to wage its final battle against Muspelheim. Numerous warships and aircraft left the port. The scene that covered the sky and the sun made everyone who remained in Asgard pray. The entire Nine Realms seemed to be Asgard's warships. Seeing this scene, people from other realms were silent and did not dare to make a sound. Muspelheim, located at the bottom of the World Tree. Therefore, this situation is somewhat ostentatious. The first time I came to the Kingdom of Fire, I didn't even dare to stop the battleship. The Asgard warriors wear specific suits and just start jumping down. Even at high altitude, Ron could still feel the temperature rising constantly. Looking down, the land is barren, and what's more, it looks like lava is buried underground. Asgard warrior didn't dare to approach the fiery place. In the distance is a sea of flames, and the flames dance from time to time. No wonder the Frost Titan never dared to fight the Fire Titan. Even Loth, the Frost Titan King, will start to shrink in size and his strength will be greatly reduced when he comes here. Serta may have an easier time defeating Loth than Odin. Roar, accompanied by a cry that sounded neither like a human voice nor like a beast's roar, the entire Kingdom of Fire began to undergo earth-shaking changes. Boom, the sea of flames in the distance erupted directly, and the nearby battleships were directly pierced by the flames, and Asgard suffered heavy losses in an instant. But the flames were still condensing in the sky, and there were continuous flight weapons and battleships falling from the sky. Soon, these flames turned into a huge amounts of figure. Flame Titan, Serta, however, his figure was still getting bigger, and countless flames merged into his body. In an instant, it was hundreds of meters high. Then hundreds of meters, thousands of meters. The eternal fire burns on his body, and the crown on his head makes his strength infinitely stronger. The height at which the battleship stayed was instantly surpassed by Serta. It seemed as if they could all be killed with just one pat. Enough. With the wrath of God King Odin, Bifrost exploded. Odin was still his outfit. However, his body also began to grow bigger. In just an instant, his divine body reached the same height as Serta. For a strong person like Odin, the body size can only be changed in one thought, and it can even grow infinitely larger. The destroyer armor is fully donned by Odin, and with the visor off, it looks like a robot. "Odin," Serta shouted, "you violated my territory and slaughtered my people, now, it's your turn to pay back." God King Odin was unmoved, but raised the eternal spear in his hand. "Throw it out." The spear of eternity pierced Surta, but had no effect. As Odin unleashes the first attack, the battle begins in earnest. Bifrost starts up again, and both Hela, goddess of death, and the legion of Valkyrie appear. Countless flames emerged from the magma. Kill. Come on. The warriors of Asgard rushed up. This time they changed their weapons. Instead of melee, they also used energy weapons. The Valkyries have not changed, and they are unscrupulous riding Pegasus. Especially Brunhild, she can easily kill a flame titan. Hela didn't act immediately, but was looking for the key figures in the flame titan. The battlefield looks extremely chaotic, but it is also very orderly. After all, the flame titan is more difficult to deal with than the frost titan. It looks like a group to fight the boss. The warriors of Asgard divided into countless teams and began to besiege the flames who appeared. Sizzle. The warships in the sky began to strike at the flame titan. Asgard not only has a large number of soldiers, but also a strong technology. The Kingdom of Fire naturally does not have this kind of technology, so it can only be beaten passively. The situation on the battlefield tilted from the very beginning. What's more, the goddess of death, the big killer, hasn't done it yet. Although the current goddess of death is not as strong as later, it is not something common enemies can deal with. If you want to deal with her, you have to be Surta. Asgardians get stronger the longer they live. Odin is like this, Hela is like this, and so is Thor later. The longer they live, the stronger the power of Odin within them. The so-called sleep of Odin is to sort out the increasingly powerful and disordered power of Odin in the body. Boom! Odin's eternal spear stabs Surta, but Surta seems to be unharmed and easily opens Odin's attack. Odin, order your assistance. Surta became anxious when he watched his clansmen being massacred. He is not afraid to fight Odin, but he is afraid that his people will be killed. Facts have proved that Asgard can conquer the 9 realms. In addition to Odin and Hela being strong enough, Asgard's warrior is also very powerful. Then surrender. While Odin was speaking, the destroyer armor fired a beam directly and knocked Surta down. Surta discovers that Odin is stronger than himself. Immediately surprised and angry. As the oldest existence in the 9 realms, Surta appeared earlier than the people of God's domain. And his strength is also the most powerful group in the 9 realms. He was the one who killed the 2 great gods who got up early. So, he didn't really think much of the Asgardians. However, Odin surprised him. He didn't expect Odin's ability to be so strong. With the blessing of the destroyer armor, at the moment has more power than him. Then let's end together, Surta said. The figure disappeared immediately. He teleports himself. As the oldest and most powerful existence in the 9 realms, he can teleport himself to any location in the 9 realms. Heimdall. Odin yelled back. Bifrost turned on immediately, and teleported Odin away as well. Bifrost, when it was built, had one purpose: to track Surta. Odin had already guarded against this move. Heimdall can see anywhere in the 9 realms, and Bifrost can teleport Odin to any place in the 9 realms. I have to say, Odin is really thoughtful. Ron at the moment hid in a corner of the battleship, and there was a crystal-like thing in front of him. Spar of True Knowledge. One of the treasures of Middle-earth, it can be used for distant viewing and communication between the 2 places. The distance depends on the strength of the user. This is a treasure that Ron has not remembered how many years he has signed in. It has been useless. Right now it's time to watch live. Moreover, it is very different from Middle-earth. It seems to have been strengthened by the system. Ron put his hands on the True Knowledge spar, and the mana kept pouring into it. Soon, Odin and Surta were found. A world of sea water and water elements. Although it was very different, Ron still recognized that it was Earth. The center of the 9 realms. Surta's figure landed on the Earth, and the flames on his body instantly evaporated a lot of sea water, and even the sea level seemed to drop. Surta then begins digging directly towards the core. If you kill my people, I will destroy Midgard, Surta said to Odin, who was chasing up on Bifrost. Do you think you can do it? Odin went straight after him. The speed of the 2 was very fast, and they directly dug into the center of the Earth. Ron didn't expect that Surta wanted to destroy the Earth. His mana was consumed crazily, and it seemed that he couldn't last much time. But he practiced according to the spell system recorded by Merlin, and his mana recovered quickly. Barely a delicate balance can be reached. Roar. But at the moment, there was a roar from the center of the earth. A figure with huge amounts of enough to circle the entire earth appeared in front of Surta. Earthly serpent, Jemengard. The scales on its body emitted a strong light, and then flung it directly at Surta. Surta was directly knocked down, and the whole earth shook. At the moment, many lives were lost due to natural disasters and man-made disasters. Seal him with me, Odin said, pouring magic power directly at Surta. By the way, this area is sealed so that Surta cannot teleport away immediately. The world python also presses down on Surta. Immobilize Surta. You want to destroy the earth, have you asked me? Ron cut the screen. Surta's sealed ending was sealed. As for why Odin didn't take the eternal fire and the crown directly, it's probably because of Ragnarok. The time for Ragnarok in Legendary has not yet arrived. Through the observation just now, Ron found that the earth was not as simple as he knew. In addition to the worldly python, he also discovered other powerful auras just now. It is somewhat similar to the Protoss breath of Asgard. The gods of the Olympian system. That is, the so-called Zeus and Athena gods. Not only DC has these gods, but Marvel also has them. However, in the modern era, these gods have disappeared, only the gods of Asgard remain. But even in Asgard, there was only one Thor left. But now, these gods obviously haven't disappeared or died for some reason. In fact, the so-called gods of Asgard are quite different from those of Zeus. The difference is the power of Odin. The gods of Asgard, there is no so-called godhood, all sources of power are in the power of Odin. As for the Olympus pantheon, they all have godhood. Thus, with the fall of the gods, the Olympian pantheon was doomed. Asgard pantheon, as long as there is the power of Odin, it can restore the previous glory. When the Asgard warriors saw that Odin had returned and Surta had disappeared, there were huge amounts of cheers. They understand what that means. It means the end of the Nine Realms War. None of the Nine Realms is under Asgard's rule. The brilliance of the Aesir Protoss has illuminated the Nine Realms, and the warrior of Asgard is omnipotent. Now, I have something extremely important to announce. Odin smiled, and the eight-legged horse slowly landed. Then, he directly and slowly came to Brunhild. Everyone cast complicated eyes on her. Envy, jealousy, surprise, and calm eyes are all there. They remembered that Brunhild was also a blockbuster against Frost Titan before. Brunhild held the Infinity Blade in one hand and the heads of several flaming titans in the other. This is her remarkable record. She quickly dismounted from the celestial horse and dropped to one knee. Brunhild's achievements are obvious to all. I, God King Odin, have approved her to inherit the title of Valkyrie. Valkyrie, do you approve of Brunhild? Odin looked to the Valkyrie Legion. Follow the king's will. The Valkyrie army all jumped off the Pegasus, and said respectfully. Even if some of them are not convinced, they dare not object at this moment. Odin, as a god king, agrees, who dares to object? Odin nodded in satisfaction, then looked at Brunhild. Valkyrie, I look forward to your leading the Valkyrie army to make more contributions to Asgard. Brunhild didn't know what mood he was in for a while. Joy, bewilderment. She never thought that the goal she pursued all her life would be accomplished at this moment. So she just nodded like a machine. Yes, I will. The pace of Asgard has not stopped. Odin looked around and said, but for now, let's enjoy the fruits of victory. After Odin finished speaking, countless people rushed towards Brunhild. Brunhild came back to his senses and looked at the crowded crowd. This time she still didn't see the person she wanted to see. No matter how hot it is, the warriors of Asgard don't care. They held a grand banquet here, and even if the wine would be evaporated soon after it was taken out, their enthusiasm could not be evaporated. They don't care what Odin will do next, as long as they enjoy the moment. As for the fruits of victory, the battle seemed fruitless for Ron. If he had to say it, it would be that he changed his place of residence. Asgard is still very generous to a veteran like him. Are you a friend of Corvur's? Not long after returning to Asgard, Ron was stopped by a soldier. Yes, what happened to him? He died. Since he has no relatives, I can only tell you. Congratulations. The soldier patted Ron on the shoulder and walked away. Ron opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. Said that his relationship with Corvur is not very good. But what's the point? It didn't bother Ron much, but it did end up making him a little bit pissed off. For the first time, someone who was a little familiar disappeared forever. In the evening, Ron went to the banquet held in the Golden Hall and drank wine alone. Few people are familiar with them. Ron watched them drink, punch and wrestle. Teacher Brunhild came to him, also holding a wine jar. "You're Valkyrie now, it's not okay to call me that again," Ron said casually. "But you will always be my teacher," Brunhild insisted. Ron turned to look at her. "You should go to Van Golf, the women are there." "I don't like it there." Brunhild and Ron clinked glasses, no, clinked wine jugs. "Congratulations on becoming Valkyrie and fulfilling your dream. Without the guidance of my teacher, I would not have been able to do this. You work hard yourself, boob, never underestimate your potential." Quote. Afterwards, the two seemed to want to stay drunk. But after 3 days and 3 nights of drinking, neither Ron nor Brunhild passed out. Brunhild became stronger and was favored by Odin. And Ron kept strengthening his constitution. Even if he doesn't want to become stronger. You can't use the potion you get when you sign in, right? Therefore, it has led to the situation that he is not drunk at all now. Since he can't get drunk, alcohol has no meaning to him. Not long after, people from the 9 realms came to congratulate God King Odin. The title of Odin's God King has been well deserved by now. Ron saw sprites of light that he hadn't seen before. Perfect facial features, pointy ears. It fits perfectly with the elf in his mind. In addition to the elves of light, people from the Warner Protoss, Dwarf, Frost Titan, etc. all came to congratulate Odin. Only, God King Odin is not there. The only ones who came out were Queen Frigga and Hela, goddess of death. This was the first time Ron met Frigga. This god queen of the Vanir Protoss, she has huge mana, which shows that her strength is also extraordinary. God King Odin is out on business. Odin stood on the cliff of Vomir Star, and the momentum on his body made the whole planet seem to be a lot heavier. The Asgardian shivered behind him, not even daring to look up at Odin. Odin felt the soul gem, and he raised his hand, looking at the infinity gauntlet in his hand. It has been inlaid with yellow, purple, green, and blue gemstones. He has collected all infinite gems except soul gem and reality gem. Ragnarok, it seems, is no longer a threat to Asgard. Because the soul gem is right in front of him, he also knows where his father Bull has placed the reality gem. Odin's expression kept changing, and he just stood there without moving. 1 day, 2 days. After an unknown amount of time, Odin turned and left, his hair turning gray with every step he took. When he retreated away, his hair was already pale, and his face was full of old thoughts. Plop, Asgardian fell limp to the ground. It didn't take long for Ron and the others to receive the latest news about the Asgard warriors. Disarmament. Asgard no longer needs so many warriors. It seems that the brutal god King Odin is tired of war and wants to bring peace to the 9 realms. In any case, Ron left the army directly and returned to his residence. For the 9 realms war in Asgard, 80% of the men joined the army. Most of the women also joined the logistics. It can be said that Asgard invested almost all its strength. The result is naturally gratifying. In fact, this is not to blame for Odin. Without him, there would be others who want to unify the 9 realms. It's just, some people don't want to just give up. Why, we managed to have so many elite soldiers, so we should continue to expand into the universe. The goddess of death, Hela, looked at Odin, who suddenly became gray-haired, with an expression full of anger and confusion. She longs for war, longs for the death that war brings. We already have enough territory, what we need now is to digest the fruits of victory. Odin responded, his voice not so firm. No, we need to expand, and war will make Asgard's reputation far and wide. Enough is enough, the 9 realms now need peace and a benevolent king. Kindness. Hela turned her head and stared into Odin's eyes evilly. Have you forgotten who caused the war to sweep the 9 realms? Who inserted the spear into the heart of the Vanir Protoss? You want peace after killing people, running out of slaves, and building your beloved palace. Enough, you madman. Odin couldn't help but picked up the brazier and threw it on Hela. Hela held the cloak against the brazier and let it fall to her feet. I'm a crazy person. Look at you, Odin, you're like an old tiger now, not fit to be a god king anymore. I don't know what you've been through to make you look so old. But I know that now only I, Hela, can be the god king. Hela sneered. You want to conquer the universe, even if you have to pay a terrible price. Odin asked one last question. Definitely, in order to dominate the universe, I am willing to give up everything. Hela came over, stared Odin in the eyes and said slowly and firmly. Odin trembled all over. He didn't expect his daughter to be so crazy. Although, all of this was caused by him. I have to say that Odin is really not a good father. Hela followed him to fight and became a war madman. Thor was educated by him to be a tough guy. Get out, get out. Odin pointed outside, lying on the throne and closing his eyes. Hela glanced at Odin proudly. She already understood what she said calmly. It won't just end like this, Odin. Indeed, it did not end there. When Hela flew into the sky of Asgard and said those words, everyone knew. Hela rebelled. Warriors of Asgard, old Odin is no longer fit to rule you. He is a coward who wants to lay down the glory of the Aesir Protoss. He wants to negate our efforts. Warriors, follow me, overthrow the rule of Odin's old thief, and establish a new Asgard. Hela riding the spirit wolf holds up Mjolnir. Then, he smashed it hard to the ground. The night sky sword appeared in her hand, and she wiped it on her head casually, and the crown that belonged to the goddess of death appeared on her head. All of Asgard fell into silence. All the drunk and sober Aesir went outside and looked at each other. Someone wants to take up arms and follow Hela in rebellion. But he was quickly suppressed by the people next to him. You are crazy, dare to resist the king of gods. God King Odin will kill you. Quote. In words, everyone is even more terrified of Odin. Although Hela, the goddess of death, is also admired by warriors, she always takes the lead. But everyone is more frightened by Odin's prestige. Seeing that there were very few people responding to her, Hela suddenly smiled. Although the smile is a bit bitter, but the voice is getting louder. Okay, you are all afraid of Odin, not me. Hela almost screamed, and then her hands were on the ground. Follow my legion, warrior of the dead. Hela whispered like this, and the warriors surrounded her in circles. The Valkyrie army soon came to the scene, but just surrounded Hela without doing anything. Without Odin speaking, no one dared to do anything to the great princess Hela. This made Hela even more manic. She discovers that in Asgard, she is nothing. When Hela stood up again, she had regained her former grace. And the entire divine realm was shrouded in a gloomy and cold atmosphere. It seemed that the whispers of the dead were ringing in their ears. Then, from Asgard's location, countless armies of death slowly emerged from the ground. At first there were only skeletons, but they soon turned into warriors. The souls of the warriors who died in the war were taken to the kingdom of the dead by Hela. Then at the moment, summon them. Hela, using the spirits of the dead. Boom, boom. The death army surrounded Hela in a uniform manner, and the Asgard warriors along the way were all squeezed away. The army of the dead around Ron ignored him and walked around him consciously. He watched this scene silently, and then he saw Brynhild with a resolute expression. This new Valkyrie. At the moment everyone is wondering, why hasn't God King Odin appeared yet? Until the death army surrounded Hela, Odin still did not appear. Since you don't want to follow me, then hand over your souls. Hela laughed, then ordered the army of the dead to attack. To the Asgard warrior beside you. In Ron's eyes, Hela's true face emerged again. That represents the left side of death, becoming more and more rotten. Valkyrie Legion, kill her. At this time, Odin's voice finally appeared. Then an order was issued to send the Valkyrie legions to their death. Odin must have known that the Valkyrie army was no match for Hela. But he still sent them to die. Odin, the god king who was once familiar, now makes them a little strange. But as the most loyal subordinate of the god king, he still firmly fulfilled this order. Kill me, Hela smiled. The Legion of Death killed countless Asgard warriors in an instant. Then she threw herself into the crowd. Although the Valkyrie army can't beat her, they are also not easy to mess with. So she decided to expand her army first. Stop. Brynhild gave a roar, and then jumped on his Pegasus. But her Pegasus was directly hit by the evil spirit wolf. And she was also beaten upside down by Hela and flew out. You have let me down too much. Hela gave Brunhild a disappointed look. Then she took advantage of the sword to end her life, but the night sky sword pierced into the body of Valkyrie, who was blocking the sword for Brunhild. Brunhild held the other party's body, a little speechless. Valkyrie. You can't die. After speaking, the other party lost his life. As soon as the fight started, a Valkyrie died. This is a heavy blow to Asgard warriors. Because in the Nine Realms War, the Valkyrie Legion had almost no losses. No, Brunhild shouted, and rushed up again holding the Infinity Blade. But she couldn't keep up with Hela. Only the enemy could feel this powerlessness before, but at the moment she felt it too. Hela massacres in Asgard, but Odin does not come out to stop it. In a short time, Asgard's army fell in pieces. But the soldiers continued to press on. Asgard warrior took the attribute of fearlessness to the extreme. And then, Hela's death army grew in number. It seemed that the rebellion was about to succeed. Roar! The evil spirit wolf let out a roar, and flew in front of him with a single leap. Hela charged towards Ron. It wasn't her intention. Instead, she randomly found a direction to fight. Soon, he came to a black-haired man. Hela raised the night sky sword in his hand and stabbed towards Ron. Prison. But at this moment, a voice that only the two of them could hear appeared in Hela's ears. The next moment, the scene in front of Hela's eyes changed. The world seemed to have become a cage, and she was being locked in the center. Boom! Hela slammed into the cage, but couldn't get out. Asgard still has such a strong mage. Hela can be sure she hasn't seen Ron. However, Ron's strength was beyond his imagination. Hela had to find a way to break the magic. And Ron left the place quickly. He just needs to trap Hela. As for the rest, leave it to Odin. Ron, hiding in the crowd, waved. Countless meteorites suddenly appeared in the sky of God's domain, and then fell towards the ground. This is a forbidden spell recorded in Merlin's magic book. But Ron used it casually. At this moment, Odin finally couldn't bear it and came out. Whatever his purpose, Asgard could not be harmed. Odin's figure appeared in the air, holding a blue box in his hand. Tesseract. With the energy erupted on the Tesseract, countless meteorites were sent into the universe. It was as if this spell was just an illusion. It came and went quickly, and only fluctuated in the air. Ron waved again, and the cage that imprisoned Hela was broken instantly, and Hela appeared in Asgard again. Hela Odinson. An angry Odin came to her. In the name of God King Odin, I take away your power. After Odin finished speaking, Hela's cloak fell directly from her body. It didn't take long for Hela's true face to emerge. Half dead, half alive. Definitely, not many people can see this scene. And Hela lost her cloak, and was directly unable to maintain her own vital functions, so she knelt on the ground weakly, supporting the night sky sword to prevent herself from falling down. She didn't even look at Odin, however, looking for the man who cast the spell in the crowd. Unfortunately, she couldn't find it at all. You are disobedient, arrogant and ambitious. Kill the people of Asgard indiscriminately, trying to subvert the rule of Asgard. I will expel you in the name of the Aesir Protoss, and you will never return to Asgard. Odin raised the Tesseract in his hand, and the power of space began to flash. Apparently, he wanted to lock Hela up for good. Hela can't escape from it until he dies. Hela still didn't answer, just turned her head and stared closely at the Tesseract in Odin's hand. She has recognized its power. Space Gem, one of infinite gems. It was one of 6 infinite gems that she and Odin had painstakingly found. They made Bifrost with the Space Gem, which gave them the ability to conquer the 9 realms. Let Asgard become the ruler of the 9 realms, and his reputation spread throughout the universe. But now, Odin made it a Tesseract. This means that Odin has given up the Infinity Gauntlet, the collection of 6 infinite gems, and the great cause they have been planning. Hela closed her eyes in despair, and asked hoarsely, why? Odin naturally knew what she was asking. So he trembled his beard and said softly, because I can't give up my love. When Hela was stunned, the Tesseract directly erupted with powerful force, covering her body that could not resist. Buzz. A force stronger than Bifrost directly sent Hela to nowhere. Odin also used his own magic in this force, making it impossible for Hela to escape. With Hela gone, the army of death seemed to have lost their source of power, and they all fell to the ground. Odin flew up, and looked around. He didn't know exactly who used the magic. He's looking, but he's doomed to fail. So Odin gave up, and the power of Odin radiated from him, covering the dead warriors. Soon, those Asgard warriors whose souls had not yet entered the kingdom of the dead stood up from the ground. Odin, bring them back to life. Flick off your clothes when it's over, and hide your merit and fame deeply. Ron's magical attainments were already top-notch in Asgard, so Odin naturally couldn't find him. It can be seen from the fact that he locked up Hela casually and released the forbidden spell casually. His strength is already very strong. Only, Ron still didn't know how strong his all-out shot was. He looked at those who finally relaxed, as if unconsciously, he changed history. It was supposed to be Hela who fled, and then the Valkyrie army pursued. In the pursuit battle, the Valkyrie army was completely wiped out by Hela. Then it was Odin who imprisoned Hela. Odin glanced again, then returned to the Golden Hall. Frigga appeared in front of him, sighed and didn't know what to say. The spell just now, is it from your tribe? Asked Odin. No, my people left Asgard long ago. I see, let me be quiet. Frigga opened her mouth, feeling a little uncomfortable. She didn't quite understand why Odin did this. But she supports Odin unconditionally. Who is it? The magic attainment is so high that there is not even a breath left. Sitting high on the throne, Odin murmured. After an unknown amount of time, he took out the infinity gauntlet, on which the green gem was shining brightly. He is peeping at time. I saw Odin's body shape kept changing, and his head began to look around. But, can't find it. His strength is very strong. Odin was anxious in his heart, but he didn't show any expression. Not even the time gem could get him the answer. And according to the future he wants to see, it is planned according to his original plan. However, something has changed now. It's all Odin's plan to get Hela to take the Valkyrie Legion. He can resurrect those Asgardians who died in battle, and so can Hela. As long as Hela wants to, Hela who gets the soul of the Valkyrie army can immediately revive the Valkyrie army and continue to fight for her. This is Odin guarding against Ragnarok's backhand. He gave up collecting infinite gems, so he was not sure about Ragnarok. So, he took Hela as his second choice. However, the plan failed. Odin let out a long breath, and took off the infinity gauntlet. Such a powerful person in Asgard does not know whether it is a blessing or a curse. If it was the old Odin, he must have tried his best to find Ron. But for now, Odin chooses to let things be. When he gave up his supremacy, the brutal Odin was dead. So, he called in a few trusty Valkyries. After taking a look, Odin ultimately chose to keep the space gem. When he made the space gem into Tesseract, it was already decided. Then, he put the power gem into the spirit ball and sent it back to the desert. Put both time gem and mind gem far away and let them disappear in the universe. Because according to rumors, infinite gems is best not to get too close. The Tesseract and the Infinity Gauntlet were placed in the newly created treasury by Odin. The destroyer armor he takes off serves as an Asgardian for the treasury. Then with a wave of his hand, he replaced the mural of Hela following him to conquer the 9 realms above the Golden Hall into a peaceful scene. Then, he began to watch Asgard silently, wanting to find some cobweb horse traces. ... Sure enough, Odin chose to do so. Ron thought. Odin is still not as paranoid as Thanos, who even sacrificed his beloved daughter Gamora for family planning. Odin was unwilling to give up the love in his heart, Hela and Frigg, so he gave up his hegemony. To be honest, after seeing the old Odin, he gradually conformed to the benevolent God King in Ron's heart. Especially after Brynhild told him about his mission, he confirmed it even more. Odin was only one step away from collecting all the infinite gems, and he was willing to throw all the infinite gems out. Ron had to admire him. Go on your own, I don't want to leave Asgard. Ron said to Brynhild, and gave her the invisibility cloak. Brynhild then left with respect, and went to release the power gem by himself. The power gem was used by the Celestials to destroy civilization, and an organization wanted to divide the power gem. After the failure, he put the power gem into the cosmic spirit ball, and then put it on the Mog star in the desert. Odin found it with great difficulty. He spent a lot of thought on infinite gems. With Asgard giving up and continuing to fight, the 9 realms seemed to be restored to peace. Looking down from Asgard, there seems to be a scene of peace. Ron resumed his normal life. On Louise's recommendation, Ron found a job brewing. Although he is no longer interested in wine, winemaking is still possible. In particular, he can infinitely increase the alcohol content, so that the gang of Asgard drunks can drink it. This time Brynhild came back quickly. The Valkyrie army also had nothing to do. Except for the occasional rebellion of Jotunheim and Muspelheim, the Valkyries can only polish their martial arts. No wonder Odin wanted to hand over the Valkyrie Legion to Hela. Because after he gave up continuing to fight, the Valkyrie army could no longer play their due role. The battlefield is where the Valkyries belong. Successfully sign in for 150 years in a row, and get a reward, face fruit. Face fruit. Devil fruit produced in One Piece world. After eating, it will have ability. Successful sign in, continuous sign in for 200 years, and reward, G-Virus. G-Virus. A virus developed in the world of Biohazard, which has a certain chance of making people mutate. Successful sign in, continuous sign in for 300 years, reward, System Space Expansion Volume. System Space Expansion Volume. After use, it can add 10 grids to the system space. Ron just felt that the space grid was not enough. It was raised to 40 before, but now that I have signed in for so long, it is almost full. Now it is finally possible to upgrade again, 50 grids are almost enough. Then, he put away both the face fruit and the G-Virus. He doesn't need this kind of thing right now. Most of the things in the system space are such useless items. Definitely, it's not that it's useless, it's that it's useless to him. For the common people, these things are treasures. A gold invitation card suddenly appeared in front of Ron, who was making wine. The magical aura above made him extremely familiar. The long-lost Karl Nila. At that time, Karl Nila asked him to say goodbye, saying that the next time we meet, it will be Queen Norn. As a result, there was no movement for more than 200 years. Well, Ron got used to it. To the people of Asgard, centuries seem like a fleeting moment. In the comics, Thor was accelerated by Thanos with the time gem for 10,000 years, and Thor just had a big beard, and his hair was not even white. Definitely, Thor was also stronger at that time, killing Thanos directly. Ron opened the invitation, and the content was very exciting. Karl Nila is ready to raise an issue in Norn, and invites him to join the uprising in the past. Quote. Ron wanted to ignore it. But he made a commitment, and he's the kind of guy who commits a lot. Therefore, he cannot avoid it at the moment. After thinking about it, he took out a pair of glasses from the system space and put them on. Superman's glasses. Superman, Clark Kent's favorite item when he was a reporter. It has a magical metaphysical effect. When you wear it, no one can recognize you. It's a small item that Ron gets when he checks in, and it's only useful in this specific situation. He then teleported himself directly to the Norn area. This is Ron's first time in Norn. Norn is nominally part of Asgard. But compared to the Idaho Plain, it is as backward as the countryside. Messy, dirty, and no smiles on people's faces. And Norn's terrain is very complicated, which is why Asgard is reluctant to deal with it here. There are high mountains and deep forests everywhere, and it will be very troublesome to manage. Thus, people like Karl Nila were born. There are absolutely many people with the idea of Karl Nila, but none of them have her strength. After a lot of time and experience, Karl Nila has become a powerful mage. Without Ron, she would be the strongest besides Odin. Soon, Ron found the place according to the route on the invitation. It is a somewhat dilapidated house, which seems to have some history, and even the walls have cracks. Who are you? As soon as Ron approached, Karl Nila teleported in front of him. Ron took off his glasses, then put them back on. Luo, what a magical item! Karl Nila looked at his glasses in surprise. I have to say that the glasses are indeed metaphysical, and even Mage, who has a strong magical attainment like Karl Nila, can't recognize him. Ron glanced at the people here. Before he came, quite a few had gathered. None he knew. Presumably they are all Norn locals. This is my friend. Karl Nila made an introduction for everyone, trying to drag Ron into the water completely. But Ron didn't panic at all, and if he recognized him even after taking off his glasses, he lost. My name is Russell. Well, Russell. Carl Neela took a look at Ron, but he didn't overdo it. Hey, are you short-sighted or just looking good? Isn't it easy to change your eyes now? A tall, strong man patted Ron on the shoulder and asked. However, Ron just glanced at him. The man shrugged wisely and stopped talking. Soon, more and more people gathered here. Carl Neela stood in the middle, raised his arms and shouted, and the whole world gathered to respond. Brothers and sisters, I do not recognize the rule of Odin, the rule of Asgard, do you? No, I stopped thinking about this moment all the time, thinking about it for too long. The Norn need freedom, we all need freedom, not slavery to Asgard. Now, I have enough strength to resist Odin, and I need your help. What Ron didn't expect was that Carl Neela was also a good speaker. Her speech, while not as exciting as Odin's, was also very provocative ability. Those who were present were the ones who decided to follow her, so they naturally became extremely crazy at this moment. Then, Ron saw a rebellion up close. Go, drive them away. We want to be our own masters, and I will be your Queen Norn from now on. Carl Neela's words gradually spread throughout the Norn. The frenzied crowd poured out, then took up arms and began to drive out the Asgard guards. Even the common people rushed out under the leadership, picked up the guy that could be used as a weapon, and shouted at people. Since this is inside Asgard, naturally there aren't many soldiers. Moreover, those who stayed here basically had never been on the battlefield, and they were all expelled after a short while. None of them are a match for these veterans. Carl Neela has been planning for a long time to gather all the Norn who participated in the Nine Realms War, forming a great force. Definitely, they didn't kill them either, they just expelled them instead of massacring them. So it happened that shocked the whole of Asgard. When Carl Neela, dressed in black and crowned, took to the skies to declare the independence of the Norn, she was the new queen of the Norn. The Norn people actually accepted it all. For a while, the whole Norn was calling Odin a tyrant. Seeing this situation, Ron can only sigh with emotion. The world has suffered Odin for a long time. Definitely, what surprised the people of Asgard the most was that after many days, Odin didn't even send an army to suppress it, and there was even no news about it. Carl Neela, the Norn queen, seems to be the default. Without a fight, Ron wouldn't have to be here. He teleported away without saying hello to Carl Neela. From now on, it is not said that they are two people, but there will certainly not be too many intersections. Teacher, it didn't take long for Brynhild to find him. Have you heard? Carl Neela rebelled. She was extremely shocked, and the expression on her face couldn't be faked at all. I already know. Not only did I know, I was involved in the. Ron added in his mind. Although Carl Neela was a little cold back then, she was still a good person. If Louise hadn't told me that it was her, I wouldn't have believed it. Brynhild was almost incoherent. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.